Did you ever swoon over Tom Selleck and his iconic mustache? Or secretly fall for Lee Majors in those slow-motion scenes? Have you ever gone speechless seeing the faces that once made your heart skip a beat, now in their 70s or 80s? And yet, somehow, they're still handsome, in their own timeless way. Subscribe and join us on a nostalgic journey back to the golden days, where these men were once the screen lovers who stole the hearts of millions. He didn't need to take his shirt off to turn heads, just one raised eyebrow and that gentleman's mustache, and millions were hooked. With his steady presence and deep-set eyes, Tom Selleck was once dubbed America's leading man in Magnum, P.I. Now 79. He still carries that dignified charisma. Though his face has filled out a bit, his hair has thinned, and his smile carries the mark of time, there's something timeless in the way he grins. He's still the Tom Selleck we remember. The ultimate man's man of the 70s, six-pack abs, a stern gaze, and a heroic stance in the $6 Million Man. Lee Majors was more than a cybernetic hero, he was the $6 Million Man with a $1 million heart. At 84, his features have become sharper, his eyes a little deeper, but the iconic look remains unmistakably his. In Miami Vice, Don Johnson stole the screen with wavy hair, a rebellious charm, and that effortless, cool guy vibe. More than just a heartthrob, he set fashion trends that defined a decade. At 75, he still shows up in major films like Knives Out, dressed to perfection and carrying the aura of a man who's lived and loved well. In the late 70s, Robbie was a different kind of star. No muscles, no bravado, just soulful eyes, pink lips, and porcelain skin. Dubbed the Silver Screen Prince, he melted hearts without trying. Now 68, he's found success behind the camera as a director and author. His face is fuller, his jaw softer, but that gaze? Still unforgettable. Nobody forgets MacGyver, blonde curls, mischievous eyes, and the genius who could defuse a bomb with a paperclip. Richard Dean Anderson was the thinking woman's bad boy. Now 75, fans barely recognize him, his silver hair, fuller face, and withdrawn lifestyle have kept him out of the spotlight. But his legend lives on. In the 70s, James Brolin was every woman's dream husband on screen. Tall, warm-eyed, with that noble brown mane, he looked like he stepped out of a romantic novel. In Marcus Welby, MD, and Hotel, he wasn't just handsome, he radiated class. Now at 84, time has softened his looks. His face carries more lines, his pace is slower, but his confident, captivating smile remains. The sweet, bad boy of American TV, Greg charmed fans with long romantic hair, dreamy eyes, and a rugged edge in My Two Dads and Tech War. Now in his 70s, Greg's hair is shorter and grayer, his skin weathered, but that natural warmth in his eyes is still very much alive. He was never your typical Hollywood hunk, but the quiet intensity, soulful gaze, and mature masculinity he brought to Rich Man, Poor Man made him unforgettable. Peter wasn't about muscles, he embodied emotional depth. At 75, he looks more gaunt, his hair now snowy white, and his voice raspier, but that presence still commands respect. No one else could have made the rugged cowboy persona so legendary. In the Sacketts and Roadhouse, his silver mustache, deep voice, and piercing eyes became iconic. Now 80, he still acts, carrying that stoic calm and ageless magnetism. Though time shows on his face and voice, he remains the kind of man women admire and time itself bows to. He once ruled hearts with an intellectual charm, sparkling eyes, and mischievous grin in The West Wing and Animal House. The boy next door with a witty soul, Tim was the guy you could talk to all night. At 77, his hair has turned white, and laughter lines frame his eyes, but he's still just as likable as ever. In the 70s, James Brolin was every woman's dream husband on screen. Tall, warm-eyed, with that noble brown mane, he looked like he stepped out of a romantic novel. In Marcus Welby, MD, and Hotel, he wasn't just handsome, he radiated class. Now at 84, time has softened his looks. His face carries more lines, his pace is slower, but his confident, captivating smile remains. In the Rockford Files, James Garner didn't need muscles to captivate, just a sharp gaze, a half smile, and a touch of dry humor were enough to make him a symbol of wit and masculine charm. Before his passing at age 86, Garner aged gracefully, neatly combed silver hair, a warm smile, and eyes that never lost their spark. The sweet, bad boy of American TV, Greg charmed fans with long romantic hair, dreamy eyes, and a rugged edge in My Two Dads and Tech War. Now in his 70s, Greg's hair is shorter and grayer, his skin weathered, but that natural warmth in his eyes is still very much alive. No one forgets David Hasselhoff sprinting down the beach in Baywatch, tall, broad-chested, flashing that iconic 90s smile and voluminous hair, a sex symbol for a whole generation, once even dubbed the most watched man on television. At 72, he's still holding on to some of that old charm, though his face has become more rigid from cosmetic work, and his eyes have lost some of their former sparkle. Robert Wagner embodied classic American elegance, slicked back hair, a razor-sharp smile, and the confident posture of a true gentleman in Heart to Heart. He was like a James Bond with a touch of American swagger. Today, at 94, he's rarely seen in public. Time has reshaped him, wrinkled skin, slower steps, and quieter presence, but the legacy remains. In Cheers, Ted Danson wasn't just the soul of the bar, he was the soul of an entire era of American television. With thick hair, a radiant smile, and sparkling eyes, he was famously known as the most charming bartender in the world. Now at 76, his hair is fully silver, his face leaner, but his relaxed aura, witty remarks, and bright eyes still make him one of the most beloved senior actors on TV. John Schneider was every small-town girl's dream as Bo Duke in The Dukes of Hazzard. Golden hair, a dazzling smile, and a tall, athletic build made him the embodiment of freedom, rebellion, and country boy charm. Now 64, he still sings and acts in indie films, but age has gently altered his looks, thinning hair, time-worn features, and a more reflective gaze. The 1980s belonged to Harry Hamlin. He was the picture of flawlessness in LA Law. Sculpted features, deep eyes, and an intellectual allure made him the ultimate gentleman in the eyes of successful women. Once crowned the sexiest man alive by People, Harry, now in his 70s, still maintains his physique and composure, though his once sharp looks have softened with time. William Shatner wasn't just handsome, he became a cultural icon. As Captain Kirk in Star Trek, he redefined the image of the futuristic hero: bold, brainy, and irresistibly charismatic. Amazingly, at age 93, Shatner is still active, attending events, publishing books, and even blasting into space with Blue Origin. Corbin Burnson lit up screens in LA Law as the flashy, confident attorney Arnold Becker, golden-haired, sunlit smile, and endlessly self-assured. Now in his 60s, Corbin is still working in the industry, but his looks have matured: silver hair, a rounder face, and a gentler grin that speaks of wisdom over swagger. Though not an actor in the traditional sense, Dan Rather, an icon of American journalism, was often recognized not just for his talent, but for his striking presence. Tall, composed, and with a piercing gaze, he became a symbol of masculine authority in a world full of movie stars. Now at 92, Dan no longer appears regularly. His hair is completely white, and his voice has grown slower, but his legacy still speaks volumes. In Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, Gil Gerard brought to life a futuristic warrior with a powerful physique, sun-kissed skin, and an aura of courage. He embodied the sci-fi heartthrob archetype. In later years, Gil battled diabetes and significant weight gain, and his appearance changed dramatically from his TV heyday. Rising to fame in Hill Street Blues, Daniel projected a mature, intellectual kind of masculinity. His chiseled features, thoughtful eyes, and calm demeanor made him the archetype of the deep, introspective man. Today, he lives a quiet life, rarely appearing in public or media. A true icon of the 60s and 70s, Bobby Sherman was more than just a pretty face, he could sing too. With long brown hair, a gentle smile, and innocent eyes, he was the ultimate teenage dreamboat. After leaving showbiz, Bobby became an emergency medical technician. Now 81, He lives a quiet, peaceful life far from the limelight. In the 1970s, Desi Arnaz Jr. graced the screen as a young gentleman with irresistible Latin charm, handsome, suave, and undeniably captivating. But life wasn't easy. Desi struggled with addiction and the heavy expectations that came from his famous lineage. At 71, he has retreated from public life and lives quietly, far from Hollywood. Warren Beatty was the very image of the mysterious heartthrob, disheveled hair, intense eyes, and that effortlessly sexy attitude in films like Shampoo and Heaven Can Wait. Famously charming and romantically linked to many of Hollywood's most iconic women, Warren's allure was legendary. At 87, he seldom appears in public, and though age has softened his looks, he still exudes a commanding grace. As the Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno stunned audiences with his massive frame and fiery intensity. Born with hearing loss, Lou overcame adversity to become a symbol of power and perseverance. Now 72, he still trains regularly, but his body has softened and his face shows the passage of time. Still, the strength remains. Known for his roles in T.J. Hooker and Grease 2, Adrian Zmed was the epitome of 1980s nightclub charisma, slick black hair, cheeky grin, and flashy dance moves. He brought a different kind of charm, flirty, upbeat, and electric. Now 70, Adrian still performs in small shows, and while his looks have aged, his joyful spirit is as radiant as ever. From Taxi to Dear John, Judd Hirsch wasn't your typical heartthrob, but he captivated audiences with his wit, intelligence, and warm, grounded presence. He's the kind of person you'd talk to all night, not for his looks, but for his soul. At 89, Judd is still acting, and it's that unwavering dedication that makes him even more magnetic with age. In Hunter, Fred Dryer left a lasting impression as the tall, tough detective with a gravelly voice and piercing stare. A former football player, Fred brought a rugged intensity to his roles, gritty, commanding, and stripped of theatrics. Now in his 70s, Fred keeps a low profile, but the image of that stoic lawman still lingers in the minds of fans. Scott Baio shot to fame as Chachi in Happy Days, a heartthrob with smoldering eyes, a cocky smile, and that signature thick, dark hair. Now in his 60s, Scott continues to work in the industry, though he lives a fairly quiet life. Time has sharpened his features and thinned his once iconic hair, but fans still remember the charm. Known for his refined presence and aristocratic looks in Heart to Heart, Robert Wagner was the embodiment of the classic gentleman. Now at 94, he still earns admiration for his calm demeanor and timeless grace, even as age has softened his appearance. Best known as the bumbling dad Al Bundy in Married, with Children, Ed O'Neill carries a quiet magnetism all his own. With a serious expression and intelligent eyes, he brought realism to his roles. His return as Jay in Modern Family won hearts once more. Now 78, Ed lives a low-profile life, rarely appearing in the media. From NCIS to Chicago Hope, Mark Harmon captured viewers with his quiet strength and salt and pepper charm. Once a handsome college athlete, he evolved into the archetype of the strong silent type. Now 72, Mark has stepped out of the spotlight and spends more time behind the scenes. In the A-Team, Dirk Benedict played the smooth-talking Templeton, faceman, Peck, handsome, cheeky, and sharply dressed. With his wavy blonde hair and confident grin, he was the epitome of 80s bad boy charm. Now 79, he lives a quiet life, his hair silver and his once youthful face lined with time. He wasn't the typical leading man, but Paul Reiser's wit, warmth, and intelligence in Mad About You made him the ultimate, ideal husband, in viewers' eyes. At 68, Paul continues to act, embracing his natural silver hair and a mature look that's every bit as endearing. As the calm and capable Barney Miller in the hit show of the same name, Hal Linden stood out with his warm smile, quiet strength, and leadership aura. At 93, he still appears in smaller projects and maintains an active, positive lifestyle. In Miami Vice and Battlestar Galactica, Edward James Olmos defined quiet authority, commanding respect without raising his voice. Now 77, he remains active in filmmaking, public speaking, and community work, still carrying the same quiet force that once defined his screen roles. As Hutch in Starsky and Hutch, David Soul charmed audiences with his poetic blonde looks and gentle manner. Off-screen, he was also a soulful singer. Before his passing in 2023, he had relocated to England and faced several health challenges, but never lost the tenderness in his voice or spirit. As Detective Ricardo Tubbs in Miami Vice, Philip Michael Thomas was all about sharp style, mystery, and magnetic calm. Now 75, he lives a quiet life. His face bears the lines of time, but his composed and reflective presence remains just as powerful. As John Baker in Chips, Larry Wilcox was the quintessential all-American cop, kind, sincere, and classically handsome. Now in his mid-70s, Larry maintains a humble public image with silver hair and a quiet grace that still reflects the good guy energy he once brought to the screen. Nobody could ever forget Mr. T, with his iconic mohawk, gold chains, and the legendary line, "I pity the fool." At 72, his muscles may have softened, but his indomitable spirit and warm heart continue to command respect around the world. From Simon and Simon to Major Dad and This Is Us, Gerald McCraney became a household name for his steady presence and rugged charisma. At 76, he's still appearing in television roles, his hair snow white, but his gaze just as unwavering as ever. As the beloved John Boy in The Waltons, Richard Thomas symbolized the wholesome American boy next door. Now 73, he retains his gentle demeanor and scholarly look, though time has brought a soft touch of age to his face. With long black hair, a tall frame, and a sincere smile, Randolph Mantooth didn't need dramatic lines, his eyes alone could move an audience. At 78, he remains active in public health communication and continues to carry himself with calm strength. Randolph's close co-star in Emergency, Kevin Teige, won hearts with his grounded, intelligent charm and everyman appeal. Now in his 80s, Kevin lives a modest life and keeps a low profile, far from the spotlight. Once the lovable Richie Cunningham in Happy Days, Ron Howard later became one of Hollywood's most respected directors. At 70, he may not be in front of the camera often, but he still carries the same down-to-earth warmth that made him a star. A sensation in the 1970s, David Cassidy rose to fame through The Partridge Family, with his angelic looks and musical charm. Sadly, a turbulent personal life and struggles with alcoholism led to his passing in 2017 at the age of 67. Alan Alda's portrayal of Hawkeye Pierce in MASH left a lasting impact, a wartime doctor who was as brilliant and witty as he was kind. Now 88 and living with Parkinson's, he continues to work on TV projects and podcasts, sharing wisdom with humor and heart. In Starsky and Hutch, Paul Michael Glazer brought swagger and soul as Detective David Starsky, known for his wild curls, red track jacket, and rebel spark. Now 81, Paul has shifted to directing and writing, still pouring creativity into every role he takes on. As Luke Duke in The Dukes of Hazzard, Tom Wopat was the perfect counterbalance to Bo Duke, John Schneider, with his dark hair, intense gaze, and the aura of a man who valued freedom more than fame. Now 72, he continues to perform on Broadway and sing, living a calm, grounded life. In the late 70s and 80s, Willie Ames was a teen heartthrob thanks to roles like Buddy Lembeck in Charles in Charge and Tommy Bradford in 8 Is Enough. At 64, he lives a quiet, low-profile life away from the spotlight. Tony Curtis wasn't just a silver-screen heartthrob, he also made waves on television, starring alongside Roger Moore in The Persuaders. He passed away in 2010 at the age of 85, leaving behind a legacy of cinematic greatness. You couldn't have an action star list without Lorenzo Lamas. From Renegade to Falcon Crest, he embodied the rugged hero. Now 66, he's still in great shape, and believe it or not, he's currently working as a commercial pilot. William Devane became known for playing powerful political and business figures in shows like Knots Landing, 24, and The West Wing. With his steely gaze and trademark half-smile, he exuded authority. Now 85, he lives a quieter life, his silver hair and weathered face speaking of years well lived. As President Josiah Bartlett in The West Wing, Martin Sheen redefined what it meant to play a fictional leader. At 83, he still carries the same commanding presence, a symbol of dignity in both life and career. Noah Weil stole hearts as Dr. John Carter on a symbol of kindness, intelligence, and quiet charm. Now 52, he rarely makes public appearances, but his masculine features have become even more defined over time. Stacy Keach is remembered for his gritty, magnetic portrayal of private detective Mike Hammer. Today, at 82, he remains active in film, though his face has visibly aged, bearing the marks of time and experience. Bob Newhart, the king of dry, understated comedy, became a household name through The Bob Newhart Show and Newhart. Now 94, he still occasionally appears on screen, his snowy white hair and slowed gait a graceful testament to a life of laughter. William Shatner, the iconic Captain Kirk from Star Trek, is a living legend of television. At 93, he's still everywhere, on TV, hosting shows, publishing books, and even making history by flying into actual space. Some stars fade, but Shatner keeps soaring. As the mastermind behind Seinfeld, the sitcom famously known as a show about nothing that became everything, Jerry brought a subtle, clever, and irresistibly witty humor that defined a generation. Now at 70, he remains sharp, stylish, and as relevant as ever. Once hailed as America's TV dad in The Cosby Show, Bill Cosby's legacy took a drastic turn following his conviction and imprisonment. At 86, he now lives in seclusion, far removed from his former public life. Best known for his lead role in Beretta, Robert Blake embodied the gritty, brooding detective with undeniable charisma. His life was filled with controversy, and he passed away in 2023, closing a tumultuous chapter in Hollywood history. A familiar face on countless sitcoms, Married with Children, Happy Days, The Love Boat, Ted McGinley brought classic good looks and charm to every role. Today at 66, he's still handsome, his silver hair only adding to his charisma, enjoying a peaceful life with his family. A former football star turned actor, Ed Marinaro stood out in Hill Street Blues with his strong build, chiseled jawline, and intense stare. Now 74, he still carries the presence of an NFL legend, gritty, grounded, and undeniably commanding. A beloved figure of the 80s thanks to Family Ties and the Back to the Future trilogy, Michael J. Fox continues to inspire millions. At 62, he makes occasional appearances, though his face clearly shows the toll of Parkinson's, a battle he's fought with unmatched courage. Henry Winkler captured America's heart as Fonzie in Happy Days, leather jacket, slicked back hair, signature wink, and that iconic, A. Now 78, he remains a beloved figure, acting, writing, and earning the affectionate title of America's Grandpa. In the 70s, Robbie Benson was the screen's sensitive heartthrob, big, soulful eyes, a gentle voice, and the kind of presence that made everyone want to protect him. Now 68, after surviving multiple heart surgeries, he lives quietly with his wife, composing music and writing. In Welcome Back, Kotter, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs brought swagger and soul as Freddie Boom Boom Washington, the smooth, quick-witted student who could have walked straight off a Motown album cover. Now 70, he still takes on occasional roles, living calmly and retaining his signature cool. As Andy Travis in WKRP in Cincinnati, Gary Sandy was the dashing, stylish station manager who brought charm to every scene. At 78, he lives a quiet life, his hair now mostly silver, but fans still remember the suave radio boss from the golden age of sitcoms. As attorney Dan Fielding in Night Court, John Larroquette made TV history by creating a character who was smart, charming, and delightfully quirky. Now 76, He's still active, and recently reprised his iconic role in the reboot of Night Court. Known for his role as Dr. B.J. Hunnicutt on MASH, Mike Farrell brought sincerity and heart to every scene, with his golden hair and honest eyes. At 85, he lives a modest life, his face marked by time but still full of warmth. The adopted son of screen legend Helen Hayes, James MacArthur became an icon in his own right as Dano Williams in Hawaii Five-0. He passed away in 2010 at the age of 72, leaving behind a beloved legacy. In Chips, Eric Estrada lit up the screen as Ponch, the motorcycle cop with sun-kissed skin, a megawatt smile, and bad boy swagger. At 75, he still appears on TV and is active in community work and public service. Parker Stevenson won over millions of teen hearts as Frank Hardy in the Hardy Boys Mysteries. Now 71, he continues to carry himself with calm elegance, staying true to his naturally composed charm. From Dr. Kildare to the emotional heights of the Thorn Birds, Richard Chamberlain became a global symbol of refined beauty and soulful complexity. At 90, he remains the very definition of timeless elegance. Younger brother of David Cassidy, Sean quickly carved out his own stardom with his role as Joe Hardy in the Hardy Boys Mysteries. Now 65, he leads a happy life with his family and still radiates that gentle, artistic spark. Ken Berry was the heartbeat of classic sitcoms like F Troop, Mayberry RFD, and Mama's Family. He passed away in 2018 at 85, leaving behind a joyful legacy that continues to bring laughter to generations. Whether as the clever agent in Scarecrow and Mrs. King or a key figure in Babylon 5, Bruce Boxleitner personified strength and intelligence. At 74, he still appears regularly and continues to impress with his lasting charisma. As Lando Calrissian in Star Wars, Billy D. Williams stole the show as the only man suave enough to rattle Princess Leia. At 87, he still carries himself with that unmistakable space cowboy charm and a smile that defined cool. From the soulful eyes of Robbie Benson to the rugged charm of Sam Elliott, these screen legends didn't just capture hearts, they etched themselves into the memory of an entire generation. Some still shine with timeless grace, others have quietly stepped away from the spotlight, but each left behind an unforgettable legacy. How do you feel seeing them today? I'd love to hear your story. And if you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss the next surprise.